Revenge films.
My name is Henry McDermott. I'm a 27-year-old full-time office employee. When I was around 5 years old, my parents got divorced, and for a while, we were living at my mother's family home. And I had a cousin living there who was the same age as me, named Karen. Karen was spoiled by our grandparents and had an extremely bratty personality. She was always harassing me in the shadows. My grandparents didn't think highly of my mom, who had come back home after getting divorced, so they did not make her feel welcome. Even though I was a child, I recognized that I wasn't in a position to complain about Karen to them. My mom had her hands full with trying to please her parents, so no matter what Karen did, she always pretended not to see it. For example, Karen once forced me to eat a bug that was still alive, or she would mix trash straight out of the garbage into my dinner. Cruel pranks were an everyday occurrence. Another time, she pushed me into the river on a freezing, snowing winter day, and in the summer, she would lock me into a scorching closet and leave me there for the entire day. However, of course, I wasn't always silent about it and letting her have her way.
What's wrong, Henry? And what happened? Why are you bleeding?
When I was going down the stairs, Karen pushed me! It hurts!
I just bumped into him a little bit. It's Henry's fault for not paying attention.
I recall correctly, I got a fracture in my elbow from this incident. Even if it was her niece, any normal parent would probably yell at a child for doing this to their son. But unfortunately, my mother didn't share the same sentiment.
So, you got in the way of Karen going down the stairs? Why would you do such a thing? You need to apologize to Karen.
I was only 5 years old, but hearing my mom say that, I was enlightened. I realized that I didn't have anybody on my side in this house. Of course, my aunt and uncle and my grandparents, who didn't think highly of us, only agreed with my mother's words. Karen's bullying only got worse and worse from there. And over again, she would pull pranks that would put my life at risk. It was an endless cycle. That life continued until I graduated middle school, when luckily, I was able to get Spot's scholarship for high school, and I moved out of state. I was finally free of this hell that I endured for 10 years. Once I graduated high school, I got a job at a sports equipment manufacturing company, and I never once went back to my grandparents' house since then. But about 1 year ago, out of nowhere, I got a phone call to my office from my mother. I hadn't given my mom my personal contact information, so she must have been desperate and called the office to try to get a hold of me. To be honest, I debated whether to answer or not. But I didn't want my colleagues to probe about my family relationship, so I ended up picking up the phone. I figured I could just listen to whatever she had to say, and then quickly hang up. But
Henry? It's an emergency! Karen, she's...
what about Karen? I'm sorry, but if this isn't concerning me, then I'm going to hang up.
Wait, Karen is really sick! Please hurry up and come to the hospital!
According to my mother, a few months ago, Karen suddenly fell ill and was hospitalized. As a result of the hospital exams, they discovered that she had acute blood cancer. By the time they discovered it, the cancer was already at an extremely dangerous point, and they were predicting Karen to have less than 6 months left. To me, Karen was the root of my miserable youth, and even as an adult, I haven't forgotten the horrible things she did to me throughout my childhood. However, she was my cousin at the end of the day, and with this situation, I wasn't so cruel that I would say no to showing my face at the hospital. That's why I decided to use my weekend to go back home and visit Karen. At the end of the week, on Saturday, I arrived to the hospital to see Karen lying in the hospital bed, connected to multiple tubes. Between the side effects of the cancer medication and the painkillers, she was drowsy and in a daze. She didn't seem able to sit up or have a conversation in that state. In the hospital room were my aunt and uncle, my grandparents, as well as my mother. It seems as though they were anxiously awaiting my arrival, because the second I walked into the hospital room, they all pounced onto me. "Henry, we've been waiting for you! Well then, let's hurry up and have you take a test! test? What are you talking about?
The test to examine your bone marrow. If it's a match, then we could save Karen.
I imagine there are few people who have experienced a donor examination, so allow me to explain it here, just in case. A bone marrow donor test isn't a simple one where you just draw fluid from the bone marrow and that's it. Depending on the situation, you have to frequent the hospital multiple times over the course of 1 to 3 months. If you apply in advance, it's possible to receive subsidies from the local government. But in order to do that, there are very careful pre-inspections required before the examination. My company didn't offer any special paid time off for these organ donation needs. And more than anything, this was all happening way too suddenly. Plus, even for the bone marrow donor, there would be major health risks too. You can't just make me do that without any consultation first! I have my own life too! I can't!
Karen's life is on the line. This isn't time for you to be selfish.
That's right! Have you forgotten your gratitude for the way we took you two in, with all of your baggage? It's almost impressive that he was able to say that! Even though they all knew exactly how I was being treated by Karen in that house. However, even though I hated her, at the end of the day, she was my cousin that ate from the same table as me, and I couldn't deny that her life was actually on the line. In return for cutting all ties with me after this with everybody on my mother's side of the family, I agreed to become Karen's bone marrow donor. As a result of the test, luckily, our bone marrows were a match, and Karen was able to undergo bone marrow transplant surgery. The probability of survival for 5 years following a bone marrow transplant was more than 90%. With this, everybody was almost certain that Karen's life would be saved. As for me, I was happy that I was finally able to cut off all ties with Karen and them. But I think it was about 1 month after I heard that Karen was successfully discharged from the hospital. I had given them my phone number only to contact me about matters concerning the bone marrow transplant. And I got a phone call from a now healthy Karen.
My hospital bills are too expensive and I can't pay them. Henry, won't you pay half?
What are you saying? For your bone marrow transplant, I had to beg my company to give me some time off. I didn't receive a salary in that time either. There's no way I could pay that kind of money.
Is that so? You can't listen to me and do as I say, huh? Well then, I have an idea too.
I had no clue what she meant by that. But without sugarcoating it, I wanted absolutely nothing to do with Karen anymore. We may be related by blood to some degree, but there should be no reason I should have to pay for my cousin's hospital bills, especially not after risking my own life to save hers. After that day, no matter how many phone calls I got from Karen, I completely ignored them all. However, about a month later, I happened to overhear my colleagues in the office whispering as they glared at me. I heard Henry ignored his sick cousin and left her to die. Are you serious? I didn't think he was such a cold-hearted guy. After that, I decided to do a little research on my own, and I found out that not too long ago, Karen had to come all the way to the reception of my company and caused a huge commotion. The security thought she was a suspicious person, and she was quickly kicked out, but not before a few employees witnessed the whole incident. What she was yelling around the reception was crazy in itself, saying that I left Karen to die, that I refused to help my sick cousin who didn't have any money and left her to die. For what it's worth, my grandparents were the majority shareholders of a certain company and were pretty prosperous investors. I'm certain that my aunt and uncle, as well as Karen, had received their blessings too. The reason they were trying to make me pay for the hospital bills was simply because they didn't want to take it out of their own assets. In the first place, they shouldn't have been worried financially at all. Certainly not enough to ask me for help. But that being said, as the saying goes, rumors don't last for more than 75 days, and people stopped talking about it soon after. I didn't want to lose to the bad rumors around me, so I worked twice as hard, and I was able to increase our company's value and success. Which is to say, that Karen's plot to ruin my reputation failed. And then, about 2 more years after that, one day on the weekend, I was sitting at home alone and relaxing. Suddenly, my doorbell rang, and I didn't think much of it and opened the door. But I was shocked to see my mother standing there. in slightly dirty clothes and holding one bag with her. Now that I remember, I think I wrote my address on the donor application paperwork. She must have sneakily taken a look and recorded it then. What are you doing here? We had a deal to cut off all ties with you all.
I was wrong back then. I don't have anywhere to go. Please, let me live here.
Are you kidding me? I know that Karen came to my company to harass me and try to ruin my reputation. You didn't even try to stop her then. It's too late now.
I will apologize about that. I'm very sorry.
As if this would all be solved by one apology from you. If you're going to apologize, then bring Karen here too.
Karen isn't here anymore. She passed away last month.
I wasn't expecting that, and I was shocked. It wasn't that long ago that she had enough energy to come cause such a huge commotion at my company. According to my mother, last month, Karen suddenly threw up blood and collapsed at home, and died right there. That's right. Karen's illness wasn't fully healed. I was told that the percentage of people who died within 5 years of a bone marrow transplant was less than 10%. With Karen, I don't think it was just bad luck, but more of her own evil actions that invited her back to where she belongs. I understand the situation, but tell me, why were you kicked out of the house?
When her cancer came back, Karen started going crazy, and as if to be influenced by that, the rest of the family too.
So you're telling me everybody went crazy? For better or for worse, Karen was the center of the universe for that entire household. I guess you could say that for my grandparents and aunt and uncle, who thought of Karen as their queen, she was also their main reason to live. That heart and soul of the family, with the relapse of her cancer, went crazy. Her actions against me were only an extension of that. The first people who were affected by it were my grandparents. Seeing their granddaughter suffer from illness, it instantly triggered their dementia to progress. Next, stuck with caring for both her daughter and her parents who were losing their minds, my aunt fell into a depression and was hospitalized. In the end, my uncle too.
And now, ever since Karen passed away, everyone has become worse. Help me, Henry.
I'm sorry, but there's nothing that I can do. Taking care of everyone that's been left behind, that's your responsibility as the person who was living with them.
How dare you! First Karen, and now you're betraying your own mother?
I never betrayed anyone. If anything, you're the one that betrayed me first. My own mom.
How could you?
About 3 years have passed since then, and I haven't seen my mother once after that. I didn't want anything to happen at my company again, so I changed jobs, and I also deactivated the phone that I was using then. That's why I have no idea what my mother is doing now, but from what I heard from others who know my relatives, she's at her wit's end, taking care of her parents and her brother and sister-in-law. Apparently, she sold all of the stocks that her parents owned, and has already spent all of the money, and they will have to live in poverty for the rest of their lives. On the other hand, after that, I met the woman of my dreams, got married, and was blessed with a beautiful baby. I am going to do everything I can and give this child all of the love that I have so that he never suffers the same way that I did. After being released from my painful past, that's what I choose to focus on as I look towards a brighter future with my family.
How was today's video? If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Stay tuned for more.